Hello, Mr. Rogers. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
How was your day?
Oh, so far, so good. No complaints.
Oh, okay. I had something for you, man. I'm waiting on a special delivery, man. I think you're gonna enjoy this, but I had something for you. It just ain't come yet, you know.
Okay, well, when it does, I'll be available. It's no rush at all.
All right. Well, let's get down to business. Man, I got a two-sided like this convo, man. I want to really pick your brain about this because I got two different angles at this conversation. And once again, we going back to the meat and potatoes of Naouya Inoue and Fulton, and you know we mix in a little bit of the state of boxing in these conversations. So I was looking at the Regis fight and the outcome of the Regis fight. We had briefly talked about that. We had briefly talked about it, but I think you needed. I guess we had talked about you catching up on a couple things and this and that. But I was thinking, post fight, Regis had mentioned something about the hometown jitters, and I kind of took note of that. But we also had the example of Tim Tszyu being the Australian guy, non-American guy, headlining an event in pursuit of Jermell Charlo and his history, like what he did to Ocampo and his history of what he just did to Tony Harrison, i.e. the pure boxer in Tony Harrison. So we had two examples, but Regis, he didn't really look too, it wasn't, people didn't walk away from that. They saying he didn't look too good. Some people say, man, some people even said, man, he might have got pickpocketed. You know what I'm saying? Zorilla might have got pickpocketed, so he didn't have the best outing. He admitted to being dropped. He was the hometown guy, and I was like, okay, part of the question is, when it comes down to the hometown, like you being in your own place, in your own backyard, doing your thing, the frequency in which you fight home, I think that's one thing, because Regis was coming off for 5 years since he went home versus Naouya, being there on a regular basis. And he's actually hosting the champion with the two belts in this situation. One, looking at Regis and his performance in some of these, hometown performances, that we've been seeing when the big bright lights are on, how do you think that plays a part in this fight?
Well, I think that if one fighter might say that he had jitters fighting home in front of the home crowd and he's anxious or whatever, I don't think that accounts for every fighter. What that one fighter may experience doesn't translate towards every fighter that's in the same predicament. Each situation may have certain feelings for certain fighters. I just think that Regis is trying to find a suitable excuse for a lackluster performance. Because it's easy to say, oh, I was in front of the crowd, it was jitters. Or if you lose out of town somewhere, well, the environment was different. I just didn't feel right. I think he's searching for an excuse for his poor performance.
Yeah, so that could be attributed just to Regis, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, you're right. I think, he was honest about being knocked down, but yeah, maybe it was. Cause I think all boxers do it, they say no excuses. I think Josh Taylor was the only one that just basically said no excuses. Even though in this case, we're talking about this and Regis he actually won, you know what I'm saying, according to the judges. But yeah, I think that might have been just an excuse. Now, the other thing is like when we saw, you know, as recent as Ocampo going over to Australia, and we saw Tony Harrison going over to Australia, the pure boxer against the, you know, I say the complete boxer in Inoue in his hometown. How are we looking at that with Fulton being on this? Because this is not fighting in somebody's own city. This is going to somebody's country, in their own backyard, in their hometown, where they do this on a regular. Like, how do you think it affects him?
Well, I'm gonna say, as far as Inoue is perfect at home. So therefore, there's no issue that I see with him fighting at home. Matter of fact, Inoue has been perfect everywhere. So to anticipate that there could be a problem with him fighting at home in front of his hometown crowd, I don't think that that's even going to be relevant. If anything, I think it might even be a plus for him, because he's in a comfortable environment. This is where he fights. And it's not like he haven't fought at home in years. So therefore, he's anticipating coming home and fighting and really getting excited about it and losing focus. He fights at home all the time. So I don't see at this particular point where that even creates a problem for him. If anything, it might even benefit him, because he's at home. Fulton is going to travel over. He may not have that crowd support, you know. So I don't see Inoue being affected. Fulton indicated that, you know, he loves to travel. He's used to not fighting at home. So so he's not worried about it. He's looking forward to it. So both fighters are looking forward. I don't see where the venue has created any problem for either fighter.
Yeah, I see that as well. It's just, you know, when it came down to Regis, I was thoroughly, because I was going to do a little synopsis about Adversity University when it came to Regis. And I thought back to when he went over there to Josh Taylor's backyard in the performance he had. And I was looking at it and I said, well, how did Regis do? I had Josh Taylor winning it, but I saw in this fight as well, the same mistake he made in that fight is in the middle rounds, he fell asleep. So I know, being an away fighter, you up against the hometown, you know, and you're in a hostile environment sometimes, you know, you're dealing with the judges. You got to be active. That's where Regis failed. In hindsight, when I look at that fight, in both of those fights, you know, even though he won this one, in those middle rounds, he fell asleep. So I know that as an away fighter going over there, I would, if I could send a little birdie over there to Fulton, he has to be active. You know what I'm saying? Thinking he has to be active. He has to take that in consideration when you're away, because that was one of the things that they hit Regis on. Like, he basically said he fell asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, you definitely have to be active when you're fighting in a fighter's hometown. And that's because sometimes the element of the judges come into effect. And sometimes they can kind of be pro decision wise for the hometown guy, you know, and especially, let's say, in a close fight, the hometown guy may get the decision. So when you're traveling away, you have to put on a good performance, because you have to impress the judges to the point that they are confident when they make that decision that you won, that they made the right decision. Because in a close fight, if you really haven't established that you really won, then you may not get that hometown decision. So I agree. You have to be active. You have to be convincing, and you have to put on a good performance.
Now let me piggyback off this, because I know you a chess player, and I sent you that app so we can get it on now. You know, from a distance. You know, I've been working, but now this element right here, because I don't know if we ever addressed this. You know that saying where they say you gotta take it from the champion? Like a lot of times, like if the fight is fairly even, they say, well, you ain't do enough to take the belt. Like normally there's this concept. You familiar with that? Like we kind of touch bases on it every now and again just when we be talking about boxing, but like that concept of you gotta take it from the champion. Like Fulton being the champion, do any of that element come in? And you know about that saying or that theory? Like like the reason why some people justify, even though Loma outlanded Haney, 124, 110 total punches, 25 to 20 in jabs. Devin, I think he had the power shots, but he really led in the body work. But they say Loma didn't do enough to take it from the champ. You know, you recall that?
Well, that phrase has often been associated with boxing. When you're fighting a champion, you have to convincingly win and beat him on the scorecard. If the fight is that close, where it could go either way, in many cases, judges do, in fact, from my experience, will side with the champion. So you want to say that when you fight a champ, you want to convincingly have that scale tipping in your favor. Because if the fight is almost too close to call, then in most cases the champion will probably prevail. Just like if you fight the champ to a draw, the champ is going to retain his title. So you have to do more than just have that fight close. You have to actually, in my viewpoint, have it convincingly in your favor. If not, then you risk the fact of not taking the title from the champ. And that's just the way it has been in boxing. And will it change? I don't think it's really going to change.
That's an interesting dynamic. Those two little interesting dynamics, because if you think about it, Naouya was the undisputed, but he's in a new weight class where Fulton is the unified champion. And you have Naouya Inoue's hometown, big time, big stage advantage, but you also have, that saying about you got to take it from the champion playing in hand, which I'm not, it's no doubt in my mind that Inoue has the eye of the tiger to be able to, do that. We went over our predictions. We just diving deep in this conversation, but I'm gonna throw something at you. And I know how you've been trying to be on these other two fighters that I'm talking about, but I got a question for you, and it's very interesting because it's another guy out there. I think a while ago, a couple months ago, I think I maybe sent you one of his videos, and you might have already seen him, but he talks about Inoue too. He's a huge Inoue fan. He talks about it, he breaks it down pretty good. But he was talking about how he believes that this fight is bigger than that fight, that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Now I don't believe that, but it made me come up with this question: is Naouya Inoue and Stephen Fulton going to be more competitive or less competitive as it relates to Errol Spence and Terence Crawford? Which was this going to be a more competitive fight, or it's not?
You know what? Based on the combatants, I think that this fight has equal intensity. Okay. Errol Spence is, in my viewpoint, a more devastating puncher and attacker than Crawford is. And based on that, if he's able to enforce his will, and when they get into exchanges, able to land his punch and be more effective, I think he will eventually be able to walk Crawford down. Crawford's gonna have to be able to punch, hit Earl, and stop his forward aggression. If he's not able to do that, then I believe that Earl will constantly walk him down and will constantly put pressure on him, and then that pressure will take its toll during the second half of the fight. I also see the same thing in the Fulton Inoue fight. As Inoue presses in, looking to score his shot, Fulton is going to have to be able to slip, hit Inoue, stop him in his tracks, put caution on him as he tries to move in. If he's not able to do that, and Inoue can constantly move in on him, then as Inoue begins to strike him and hit him, and he shows any signs of starting to back up, then he will eventually, I think, get in trouble and eventually get walked down by Inoue. So the elements of what I see with Crawford against Errol Spence is the same thing I see in an Inoue Fulton fight. And whoever can prevail will have a better shot of winning the fight. That's why I say I see these both fights as being equal in what needs to be done by each combatant to establish a win.
Yeah, I'm still, I'm still. You might have just put me on that side. You might have just drugged me over to that side, because at first I was saying, yeah, this fight gonna be more competitive than the Spence and Crawford, because I kind of see that fight as like, I like they've been saying, it's been the saying going around, like a lot of smoke and mirrors, man. I think a lot of the level of competition type, conversations are starting to really like heap up on that topic, and I see that fight being, a one-sided shellacking. I also was seeing Inoue and Fulton as a one-sided shellacking. I just saw an example this weekend, which totally different skill sets. Although Zorilla showed that he used that stick, he used his legs. Whenever with the shorter reach, whenever Regis would come in, even though he wasn't coming in the right way. He wasn't double jabbing. He wasn't working his way in. He was trying to hook and step in, and Buddy was just taking a half step back, using his jab, being opportunistic, and being very effective when he chose to put a little mustard on it. And he actually dropped Regis, to his own admission. I was saying, man, that's the way Fulton would have to fight in order for him to have success against Inoue. Even though that guy, I wouldn't say he was that active. He was just active enough to do what you spoke of. Keep caution out there for Regis. Because he had to touch Regis with something to keep Regis at bay like that. Even though I'm not comparing Regis to Inoue by any means. I'm just saying, as far as the reach and how Zorilla used his length and his legs to, you know, offset or take away some of that power. Inoue is a different monster because, no pun intended, because of the way he can work in. He has the athletic ability to be able to do it with just his feet. He can also jab his way in, but his movement, he's so precise, and that pressure, I think the awareness of being caught, his opponent is already at, you know, they already moving with caution because they know all it take, you know what I'm saying, and in many cases is one time with either hand. So I don't know, man. I think they both might be one-sided. I mean, that's just me looking at from all angles, you know what I'm saying? Just not, you know, no, I'm a fan. That's why sometimes I step away from the content and be a fan for a little while so I can come back and make better content, you know. But as a fan looking at that, I see them both as a one-sided shellacking. I don't know if it's a bigger fight. I know the implications of it is because it's Undisputed moving up with 2 unified versus Undisputed, but that's the first time at the welterweight, you know, that's the Undisputed. So those levels, but the implications of the winner definitely solidifies themselves on anybody's pound for pound. Like, you know, if anybody argues with that, then that's just ridiculous. But I don't know which one is more competitive. You know,
I think for most fans, what's going to be more competitive is the fighters you've been following the most. If you have been in that welterweight division as a fan, then you are anticipating this fight between Spence and Crawford. Okay, and most fight fans can't get around that because these are the 2 top names. Now, when you're dealing with the Fulton Inoue fight, this fight can be just as crucial, but for a lot of the American fight fans, many of them don't know who Fulton is. They haven't really followed his career like that. So he's not really a household name. And Inoue, being from Japan, many American fight fans have not really watched and critiqued his career. So for the American fight fan, this fight may not be as big as the Spence Crawford fight, only because of familiarity of the fight fans in America knowing definitely how good these 2 welterweights are. You know, the average fight fan, if you ask them how good is Stephen Fulton, they might say, oh, I might have seen him fight one time, so it's hard for me to say. I don't think his career has been followed the way Spence and Crawford's have, so therefore the Spence-Crawford fight in America is going to be the biggest fight.
Yeah, that's not, yep. I agree.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest fight. Now, even though, you know, Fulton is a champ, I'm guilty myself. I haven't seen many of Fulton's fights. I really haven't.
Well, a lot of people are saying that about Inoue too. Well, you can't see his fights. I'm like, well, I mean, that's not. I mean, if you haven't seen every single, I mean, it's a lot of possible you don't see every single fight, but you've seen them when it matters and when it counts, or you know to go back and watch and catch what you need to catch to see the style, see the competition, get a synopsis of what happened. Like, you know, so seeing them or not, I think that yes, you are 100% correct about the popularity. You know, it's definitely a name thing, but I hear that argument about people saying that about Inoue and them not seeing him. It's just like, okay, well, just like Fulton and them, they need to be doing their homework. You know, they need to be doing their research. Because somebody was trying to say something like that they putting out blanket statements about people that's actually, you know, supporting anyway or have anyway winning in a manner as which you haven't even seen this fight. So I'm like, man, don't you stepping in a pile of doggy doo-doo when you talk like that, because you don't have to see a fighter every single fight to know what you deal with. Like, most of the time when you really get into debates with people, or you get to talking that boxing and they have a firm stance somewhere, and you start asking them, they really haven't even watched their own fighters. Because if they did, Bud's numbers will be a lot higher than what they are, but everybody proclaims he's number one pound for pound. So I rest my case with those kind of things. I'm just like, from what I see, the skill set in the ring, taking in a level of aggression, taking in a level of competition, taking in judging criteria and what the judges are looking at, you know, and, you know, big stage, how they perform, how effective they are, their fighting style, their adaptability, their ability to make adjustments. When I look at both of those fights, that's what I come up with, man. I still see one-sided shellackings, you know, and that's just being real. That's no cut card. That's me as a boxing fan.
You know, nowadays, because of technology, it's much different than when I was younger as a fight fan. If you didn't actually see a guy fight, then you can't critique his career, because what we had was television that showed us different fighters when they were able to come on TV. Or if you went to what was called in closed circuit, you wanted to see a fight, you would see it on closed circuit TV. You would have to pay. You would go to an arena and you could watch the fight. Nowadays, because of technology, you can sit at home, get right on the internet, click certain fights. You can critique a guy's entire fight career, because everything now is on the internet. So you don't have to wait for TV or closed circuit bout to see what a fighter is able to do. Technology has made it so much simpler. So therefore, you can watch fighters who've never been on American TV. All you do is click on the internet and you go to the fight. So nowadays, for a fight fan to know about a fighter and able to watch what this fighter has done throughout his career, it is made simple. It's not like days of old. So if there's a fighter you like, there's a source for you to look at him, see what he's able to do, look at his career, and just watch his technique. So technology has really did a lot. And for the fight fan that truly is a fight fan and want a resource, make a resource of who a fighter is, what this fighter is about, it's right there for you nowadays. So there's no excuse not to know what a fighter's capability is, because you could critique his career right on the internet.
Exactly. Because I've seen interviews with boxers say, I've seen a couple of his fights, but I think I've seen Regis Prograis, that guy who just fought, the one who was saying, he wanted the winner. He didn't come up with that decision. But even on his take, he was saying, he was watching film. But you're right. I mean, technology has made it simple. It made it easy. And I just think that it's, in a lot of ways, man, it's really just showing that people still trying to discredit boxing. Like, it's crazy how you bring up one set of boxers, or you bring up this boxer, and everybody could be understanding and know and have all the resources and access and this, but you bring up another fighter, it's like, oh, nah, man, you can't even. I'm like, I mean, it's no difference. So it just really people show their true colors, I just thought, keeping my ears to the streets and, you know, listening and stepping back into fan mode, that those was a couple interesting questions about them guys, man. And I think the excitement about this fight is building, you know, and we doing our part to keep it relevant.
Yeah, because, you know, piggybacking on what I said about the internet, I had never seen a Naouya Inoue fight before. Okay? I've never seen it. However, I went to the internet and I watched this guy fight. And then after I looked at him, I said, wow, this guy can fight. Then I looked at his career. And I looked at where he came at and where he's at. And then I said, wow, I'm going to start, you know, the next time this guy fight, I'm going to click on the internet and I'm going to watch his fight. And after doing that several times, I came to the conclusion that this guy can fight. And as he continued to move up and capture divisions, I began telling fight fans that I knew were fight fans that, hey, there's a guy from Japan, Naouya Inoue. This guy can fight. And as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the best fighters in the world. And I start promoting people to just watch this guy. Just go on the internet. You don't have to be a fan of him. Just go on the internet. Watch what this guy has done. Watch his technique. Watch the way he fights. And when I found out that you were a fight fan, that's the first thing I told you. I say, man, you need to watch this guy, Naouya Inoue. Do you know who he is? Mm-hmm. You say, no, I really don't. I say, Naouya, go on the internet, watch, critique this guy's career. As far as I'm concerned, he's one of the best fighters in the world, pound for pound.
Yep.
And I think when I told you that, you wasn't really familiar with him. You may not even knew his name. But this guy, as far as I'm concerned, man, he's a hell of a fighter. And I've been impressed with him ever since I, you know, got wind of him and was able to watch what he's done throughout his career. He's a good fighter. And not being from America has no burn with me. I watch what a guy does in the ring, his performance, his poise, how he attacks, initiate, how he finishes opponents. That's what I look at. I could care less where he's from.
Yeah, I look at it like that too. I mean, you can't, as a boxing fan, when you're a real boxing fan, your eyes don't lie. You mean you like to see, and then you gravitate and you want to see more talent like that. That's why I'll be looking at, I have a guy like Jesse Bam Rodriguez in my top 10, and if you ever said Bam Rodriguez, most people would be like, who?
Yeah, but he's good.
One of, you know, he's like in my top 10. But yeah, at the time, going back to when you told me about him, ESPN had been pushing him for a while, you know, but I take that stuff with a grain of salt. You know what I'm saying? They do have some good resources and things like that. There are some good things, but when it comes to like the boxing list, since it's barely even a sliver of their sports pie, you know, when it comes to ESPN. But the sources that choose to speak on it, I don't really, you know, I take them with a grain of salt. Sometimes they're very hit, very miss, you know, very, very miss, you know. So I wasn't really digging into him like I do most boxers. I wasn't being comprehensive about him. I knew who he was. But when you said it and the way you were talking about it after we had been talking about boxing and you was telling me about some of the old schools, I said, I got to go do some homework. And when I went and did the homework and I started looking and analyzing, I said, oh yeah, I see what he's saying. And so I said, I'm a support him. You know what I'm saying? He gained a fan. Like when I really started looking in his background, start seeing what he got, because since we small, man, the earliest thing we do, we primitive in nature, is you want to, put up the ones and twos. Whenever it's a conflict, you can see two little babies go at it over some toys, and they gonna start throwing the ones and twos in some kind of way. It's crazy the way you see that, but I recognized the talent. And so I started watching them, started doing homework, started listening to the conversation, and I was just like, man, like people are sleeping on them. So I started doing the same thing. But then when people start saying, oh man, some of the things they would say, I'm like, man, is it worth the trouble? But I'm just saying, hey, y'all, don't be surprised. Don't discredit your guy, if he is to come up with the victory, because when you don't acknowledge and give the credit to a guy's opponent, you can't get none after the fact. So I can't fully get behind and push and endorse a boxer like that unless I'm a fan, like a real fan. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, I'll just watch him and like, okay, I like that, but I won't do content. So that's why I started doing content with him. I was like, man, people need to hear how you talk about him. It gave an avenue for other people to hear you talk about him, and you've been lighting it up. So I'm like, man, we're gonna keep having this Inoue conversation.
Yes, when you look at his career, where he came from, the titles that he's won, the way he's moved up, and now he's moving up to a third division. I mean, he's a good fighter. His resume says he's a good fighter. And because he's from Japan, why a fight fan will hold that against him because he's not from America, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. He's a good look. Even if he does not win the fight with Fulton, he is still a Hall of Fame fighter. Any fighter, I don't care if you keep moving up, eventually one day you might lose. That's just the nature of the sport. This is a tough sport. But I think that he needs to be given the credit due on his accomplishments as to date. Now, what he does from today on, that can only increase his legacy. But he has done enough right now to be considered by some people as number one pound for pound. But wherever you put him at, he's in the top five. And if he was to beat Fulton, and whoever wins between Spence and Crawford, those fighters could easily be 1 and 2. And depending upon who you like or whatever, it could be Inoue and Spence or Inoue and Crawford. Whoever wins, if Inoue wins, whoever wins the fight with Spence, they're going to be 1 and 2. Now, who you want to make 1 or 2, that's up to the individual. But this fight, you could possibly see, as I said, the 1 and 2 top fighters in the world with the right outcome and the right victory in these 2 fights. You're looking at the 2 of the best in the world.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. I can't even debate that. I just look at it like this. Because sometimes when you're talking to certain people or you grasping certain audiences, it's an audience out here that tell you that Saul Canelo Alvarez is the best thing since sliced bread right now.
He has already shown with his losses that his bread has already been buttered.
Okay. So to further the point, I'm thinking that everybody who subscribed to that notion, everybody who can subscribe to that notion in this present day and time, need to go ahead and put Inoue at number one. Or I mean, if it could be a negative one, because when you're talking about moving up and getting undisputed like that coming up, he's not going up to try to bring a cruiserweight down like what Canelo was trying to do with Badou Jack, trying to bring Badou Jack down to 190 to fight him for his cruiserweight title. Go ahead and crown Inoue now. I'm speaking to that audience. I'm speaking to that audience who believe that Canelo, the gingerbread man Alvarez, is numero uno. Go ahead and put Inoue all the way up there, because resume wise, if you are being a boxing purist, everybody who put Devin Haney up there at, oh yeah, man, he arguably, man, he's top 3 pound for pound. Go ahead and put the crown. So if you want to have an even playing field and you're going to judge different fighters and hold different people to different standards, if it's not just about what they do inside the ring, but it's also about, okay, the like everybody who give Bud the credit for being undisputed at 40, having a belt at 135, having one belt at 147, defending it all those times. Go ahead and put Inoue somewhere up there in the top 5. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because you can't argue like those, if you try to have that argument, or if you try to even delve into that with any kind of energy, then you actually showing your hand and you've already lost.
Right.
But yeah,
you're absolutely right.
I just thought that was interesting, and I'm still watching, man, because we got to do this Imanza Stanionis and Virgil Ortiz. We got to do one on that. I would like to start talking about this David Benavidez. He's trying to dodge Mr. David Morrell, man. Senior actually saying that Mr. Morrell hasn't built up his resume and Canelo won't fight me. So they still chasing Canelo, but I'm like, man, this man got a real belt. Like, Morrell got a belt. You know what I'm saying? It was good enough for you to, we know who undisputed is, but he been fighting all Canelo's mandatories for like since 2021, I think. 2 years. And he want that smoke, but I don't think Mr. Morrell want it. That's one thing. Frank the Ghost Martin, I want to do a segment about his IQ. I think we talked about that on the phone, but he got a fight coming up with a guy. I don't think many people are familiar with it, but he get to showcase his talent again, so probably looking like a showcase fight. He got some things coming up. Of course, we got Spence Crawford coming up. And then that same week, we got Inoue and Fulton, where all of the chitter chatter and all that will be answered early in the morning. So we got a lot. I just know it was Father's Day, the other day, and I know you got, you building and stuff like that. So I just wanted to touch bases with you, man, and pick your brain about that boxing talk.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
All right, well, I'm gonna let you go, and again, like always, I'll be sending you stuff and developing some dialogue so we can, take this conversation another step forward.
Yes, sir. I really appreciate it, and I'll be looking forward to your next call.
All right, then. Have a good evening.
You also.
All right, peace. Well, that was my old head K. Talking that boxing talk, man. What do you think, man? Is Spence Crawford more competitive than Fulton in a way? Are they just as competitive? Or is Fulton in a way more competitive than Spence Crawford? If you've been doing your boxing homework and you are a true boxing fan, you don't deal in salaciousness, you're not an echo chamber. You like to really break fights down, styles, odds, have a comprehensive dialogue and a comprehensive outlook on boxing. Ask some of your friends, some of your other people that you know might not be as deep, but ask them that question and see what kind of answer you get. And we would love to hear your feedback. Thanks for everybody who tunes in all the time, everybody who contributes feedback to the conversation, and everybody who likes to keep things on the up and up and the positive. Salute to you. Call you guys the kidneys. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for all my new subscribers. We build this channel brick by brick. You know what I'm saying? We have responsible dialogue. We try to do good on our graphics. I know me personally, I try to be a perfectionist, which, you know, it works in my favor sometimes, and sometimes it just delays the greatness. But anyways, thanks for tuning in here with BodyWorkBoxing, where we don't take things for face value. We do that body work.